Welcome to this episode of Turning Grief into Growth, the Journey of Transformation. This is a podcast that's hosted by Greg Jacobs and Don Lipstein. Well, I'm excited about this podcast. We are joined today, of course, with my co-host, Don. Don, how are you doing today?
Awesome. Thank you for asking. And yeah, it's a beautiful morning here on Fripp Island, South Carolina. And I'm hoping it's just as nice where you are.
You know, I don't want to hear it, Don. You're always bringing up the beach, and I'm stuck in cold weather in Kentucky. But actually, no, it's going to be about 64 degrees today.
Oh,
So
nice.
I've got a walking buddy every Thursday. We go out and walk, and pretty excited to get outside. Need to get a little sunshine on me, a little vitamin D action. But to say that I'm ready for springtime is an understatement.
And
All
and
right.
it's not even
Gosh,
like the middle of January
yeah,
yet.
it's like January 8th or something. So we've got a ways to go. My daughter reminded me the other day, she's like, Dad, we're only a few days into winter technically. And I'm like, yeah, I don't want to hear it. Well, I am excited about this podcast, not just because Don is joining me again, but because we have a special guest with us today. His name is Chris Reed. I got to know Chris, golly, back in 2022. His son passed away while serving in the Navy, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention that Chris also served in the Navy. So thank you both for your service. But Chris lives in Birmingham, Alabama, and he is a postal carrier. And he lost his son CJ while serving in the Navy. I believe he was stationed at Jacksonville, Florida,
Yes.
and he passed away August 20th of 22. And that was an auto accident. He was basically joined an organization, TAPS, which Don and I were also a part of and are a part of. And that's Tragedy Assistance Program for Survivors, which is really reaching out to veterans out there who have lost somebody. Well, I guess it's reaching
It,
out to
it's
people who have lost
re-
people that had served.
Yeah.
yeah, reaching out to families of anyone that has served and died. And they do such a great job of just getting people connected to resources, but also just compassionate, loving care. That's the main thing, and I'm sure all three of us have experienced that.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So this is
Yeah.
a unique call in the fact that all three of us have lost sons while
hmm
serving in the military. So, Chris, we are so excited to have you on here, and I've been looking forward to this podcast. I have had a special relationship with you. I'll just kind of lay
Indeed.
out up front in the fact that you were assigned to me as one of my mentees, and I was your mentor to kind of walk alongside you. I can tell you from the mentor experience, because I've done a lot of them, it doesn't mean that I've got it figured out. Doesn't mean that I
Right.
have all the answers. All it means is I'm coming alongside you. I might be just a little further down the road. But brother, I have learned so much from you on this journey.
Thank you.
And that's why I'm excited for you to be able to share with others today. So, Chris, I'm going to kind of turn it over to you. Why don't you share with us just a little bit about CJ?
Okay. Thank you, Greg and Don, for having me on today. I appreciate this opportunity. Yeah. My son CJ. I was just kind of grooming him from the age about 13 to go into the military, into the Navy. You kind of know the bend that your children have, whether it's going to be college or military. So I wanted him to follow my footsteps because I knew it would be a great opportunity for him. Well, just in that grooming process and everything, he ended up going into the Navy, and he ended up being deployed overseas. I used to talk to him about his why all the time. You got to have a why that's bigger than going into the military, because you'll be done with that in about 6 months. And I told him my why. I wanted to travel, and I wanted to see different countries. I had a cousin who did it and came home with a jacket with all the countries on the back, so I wanted to see that as well. And he said, "Well, I want to travel, Dad." And 6 months after he was in, he ended up getting assigned to a ship that was in Rota, Spain. Um, yeah, and he enjoyed the travel over there. They were doing operations over there on the water 4 months, off the water 4 months, and he loved being on the water because they hit a lot of countries. Well, when they came back from doing that during the pandemic, he got stationed on my base. So I'm proud. 30 years later, my son's on my
Mm.
base, and Down in Jacksonville, I still have ties down there. A lot of friends now, not a lot of Navy brothers down there. Well, um, we get the call. Well, we didn't get the call. On that morning, the police came to our house because my son had already discharged from the base. He had gone out with some friends. We had always taught him to, wear his seatbelt and everything. I don't know what was going on, but he was getting ready to come home. Getting ready to come home that same week that we had to have him brought home. And you just never think your child would be brought home in that capacity, But I was all about trying to raise him with a level of honor, just respect people. He wrote me a beautiful Father's Day card. Like 20 years is all a son can expect from his father, and just the guidance and the love that he got and everything. So in the journey, the Navy flew us down. We, went down there and celebrated him up here. Then they flew us down. We celebrated him down there with his friends and everything. And, got to know them, and just through the journey of grief with his girlfriend and family and friends, and I was able to kind of mentor some of his Navy friends. They would call me, and we would talk, and I would try to get them through hard situations because all of them being young, they hadn't lost anybody, that close. A lot of them hadn't. And just through my journey back, me and my wife, just processing everything, it's been my journey. I said I'm just going to try to honor him as much as I can. He was part of the 1% that served this country. It's either like 1 or 2%. So I wanted to honor him as much as I can, because even though he didn't do that right, he was on a path that I loved for him, because he had already reenlisted. That qualified him to be buried at the memorial at the National Cemetery and everything. So he was on a path to do a career. That's what he wanted. And just along the way, I used it as a platform to help other people, especially, from meeting you, Greg, meeting other men that have lost children. My manager lost a son, and my best friend lost his son and daughter. So just having that platform and being able to be there for people, it feels something within me as well. So that's a little bit about our journey, and just it's just a thing of honor for me, because like I said, he followed my footsteps, and I was proud of it.
And how old was CJ when he passed?
He was 23.
So it's interesting because my son was almost 22,
Mhm.
and I think that in our minds as dads, we think, man, you should have wore your seatbelt, or you knew
Yeah,
better than to drive intoxicated, or whatever it might have been.
yeah,
And it's like, man, they were still kids. I mean,
yeah,
they were young, they were foolish, and it's hard to cut them some slack with that. But that's kind of part of the journey, as far as
yeah,
trying to forgive, understand, that they weren't full adults really at that time, as much
yeah.
as we might put a label on it as far as a certain age type thing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Hey, Chris, I'm
Yes, sir.
curious. I know you came to TAPS in 22, right?
Mhm.
When the actual date that CJ died?
It was August 20th, 2022.
Okay,
And
and
mhm.
when was he born?
He was born January 5th. He just had a birthday on the 5th, 1999.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And that date on August 22 is I mean, August 20, and was very significant for me, because in my family, that's my grandfather's birthday. And we celebrated my grandfather every year, and until he died in 2019. And we would have big parties for him, and we his name is Eli, so we had the Book of Eli shirts and everything made. So that was just a big day for me and my family. And to have lose my son on my grandfather's birthday, it just tied all that together.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Mhm.
That makes for even a more complicated
Oh
grief
yeah,
journey.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
So CJ was a month older than my son David,
yeah,
because we're
yeah,
coming up on his birthday in February 12th. So
yeah.
yeah, and my son Josh died at the age of 23 as well.
Oh wow, yeah,
So yeah, they left way too early.
yeah,
But it sounds like you are so, which doesn't surprise me, so very proud of CJ and the life that he lived.
yeah.
Um,
Definitely.
and you're doing things to help carry his legacy on. Not that us parents should be, there's, our children are supposed to be carrying our legacy on, but
Exactly.
here we are
Yeah.
carrying our children's legacy.
Yeah.
And you talked about something, and I want to hear more about this if you don't mind, but you mentioned how serving others, helps you and helps your your grief journey, helping serving your son's friends who had never experienced grief the way they experienced it when CJ died. Can you talk a little bit more about how that has been helpful to you?
Yes, sir. It just early on, his friends, all of his friends would get in touch with me because, like I said, he was he was a character. He get it from his dad. They said he was the funniest person on the ship, so he would entertain. And he liked singing and quoting movies and everything. So people liked being around him. People were drawn to him. So some of his friends just had a hard time with it, especially his girlfriends. And I told her to call me and my wife told her to call us mom and dad. She would call me saying, Dad, I'm not having a good day. And by the time we got off the phone, she would be laughing, and just trying to uplift her and everything. And just some of his friends, I still keep in touch with a few of his friends that was on that journey. They still post about him. I saw some posts the other day. Um, More of what helps me is like pouring into people who have had loss, not necessarily just loss of a son or whatever, or men, because I've had people around me to lose people, but them just seeing your presence after you lost somebody, they know that you are there for them. I mean, they know
Yeah.
that your heart is still broken. But I had a coworker lost his wife 2 weeks after CJ, and I told my wife we got to go over there because a lot of people were going over, and just our presence, a lot of people were shocked, like, I can't believe you all are here.
Hmm.
But getting out of my own way helps me to heal, helps me to pour into others. And I learned that just about being, it takes the consciousness off of self. It takes the self-consciousness away. It takes my eyes off of me because we can get in our own head and be depressed. So just focusing on others, it pours back into me.
Uh,
Like I was telling you, Greg, about my friend who he lost, his daughter and a son 4 months apart. So, and he just told me yesterday, he just went back to work since August yesterday. And he said, man, you really poured into me and I really appreciate it. And you don't want to be on that journey, but
No.
because you're on that journey, you have a responsibility to
You know,
others, yeah.
I kind of look at it like I am a product of Don Lipstein on
Mm-hmm.
this, and he would probably laugh and shake his head like Don's humble about it, but he poured into me earlier on.
Mm-hmm.
Was able to pour into you, Chris,
Right.
while Don was pouring into me.
Wow. Yeah.
So it's kind of really cool for me to see this triangle on this call because it was a product of pouring in from a little further down the road, Don being 10
Mm-hmm.
plus years, me being 5 plus years, you coming up on what is it, 4 years, I
It'll
guess,
be 4 years.
for
Yeah.
you in
Mm-hmm.
August. And there's this whole aspect of replicating
Mm-hmm.
ourselves. And
Yeah.
I have often said, I used to do men's ministry in churches. And one of the things I always used to say is, man, I just want to replicate myself and replace
Mm-hmm.
myself where somebody else replaces me and takes over.
Yeah.
I don't know that that'll ever happen in this circle as far as replacing any of us. I think that we have a mission probably till we die, as far as just really it's incumbent upon us to be able to help others and to share.
Yeah.
And Chris, I really see that in you. I really see a lot of growth in you, and being able to replicate that. Just a half hour ago, I sent your manager a text message inviting him to
Mm-hmm.
a call that I have tonight for men on Your Dad Forever. And just to be able to see how you were able to pour into others, and it's a continual downstream of life. Really, just to be able to show this empathy, that I get it.
Mm-hmm.
You're not alone with that. There was something you said earlier on that kind of cracks me up. You didn't, probably even think about this, but for me, when I hear celebration of life,
Mm-hmm.
like you went to Jacksonville for the celebration of life service,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's such an oxymoron.
Yeah.
And here's why.
Yeah.
I'm not a big celebration of life fan.
Hmm.
They wanted to call it that. It's a new term instead of funeral, that it's like,
Yeah.
let's celebrate their life.
Yeah.
And it's like, I couldn't agree more with the concept. I just think it needs to take place about 24 to 48 months down the road.
Yeah. Oh,
You
yeah.
know,
Hmm.
it's one of those things that
Yeah.
when you are in shock, you're in the heat of the moment. The last thing you're thinking of is,
It's
party
celebrate.
poppers and balloons and the word celebration. And it's kind of
Yeah.
like, if you tell somebody Merry Christmas
Hmm.
and they're on their first Christmas after their, son died, it might not be merry for them.
Exactly.
So it's,
Yeah.
I don't know, it's just a caveat side carve out
Uh,
thing I was thinking about. I was like, I
uh,
hate that term.
Yeah. Yeah.
it's funny because I caught that term. I caught that too,
Did
Greg,
you?
when Chris was said that. But I I found it to be a little different. I thought, wow, that's pretty cool that he could see that
Mhm.
in that
Yeah.
light at at that time.
Yeah.
And speaking to you now, Chris, like I didn't know you before now, but it makes perfect sense to me that here you are, you served our country, and I'm so grateful that you have done that.
Thank you.
But you are a man of service, and so uh, celebrating the life for some reason or another, it connects with me when I think of what I have learned from you already through this
Thank you.
podcast.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. The type of person that CJ was, I can't, I put it on a post when his 3 year point hit, that I couldn't stay in grief,
Mm.
because that's not that wasn't who he was. It was something that happened. But when you get time from the situation, you kind of look back on it, you can see the whole life unfolds before you. But I guess like the first 2 years, you can't get over what happened. But when you move back from it, you know, like being in an airplane, you get that distance and time from it. But yeah, and he was just a funny guy. I mean, I'm always thinking about something he did to make me laugh.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah,
That's how David
Yes.
was. He was
yeah,
always a card, always cutting up, like you
yeah,
said, when he was a party animal on the ship, always trying to lead the different, dances or whatever. That's
yeah,
some of the best pictures I have are of David doing that over in South Korea, at Camp Humphreys or different things.
yeah,
So yeah, I
yeah.
love those memories.
Exactly. One other thing I would just want to speak to is when y'all were talking about pouring into each other. Don poured into you, you poured into me. Well, you know, you got me through some hard times, man, and I really appreciate you, and I love you for that, man. And one thing that really jumps out at me is when you asking me what is the one thing, the thing that you struggle with, and I said it was that day. You know, whenever I think about that day, I try to avoid even focusing on that day. And you told me, you said you can't avoid it because it'll always come up, and that was so big in my life, man, because that was the biggest struggle. That and why no seatbelt. I didn't have questions for,
Yeah.
God or anything, because I understand all that. But my question was why no seatbelt, and focusing on that day. And I told you that I tried to move it. I tried not to focus on that day moving. You say you can't avoid it because it's going to always come up, and
Yeah.
you're going to have to face it. It took me about a week of thinking through that, crying through it, processing it, being angry, and it helped me. And at the end of that time, I ended up accepting that. And I ended up, just being thankful for the people that were around. I ended up being thankful for the 23 years that I had with him. So I really
That
appreciate you for that. I was
Oh
able to see
man,
it
love you
differently
too,
now.
brother.
Yeah.
Yeah, Greg, great encouragement because you're absolutely right. It won't go away.
Yeah.
So we learn to embrace and learn to accept, uh, and that can help us get through this really challenging time. So
Yeah.
great words of wisdom from Greg Jacobs
Well, I
Oh,
don't know
yeah.
about that, but
at
Yeah.
a time that when it was needed.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's
Yeah.
probably great words of wisdom that Don Lipstein had just told me the week before that I just reciprocated on. There is something that you said that is very intriguing to me. And you said that basically on your 3rd year anniversary, you put on Facebook, I can't stay in grief.
Hmm.
Don Lipstein had said something to me earlier on in my journey where he said, that he was in inactive grief, and I
Hmm.
thought, man, I don't even know what that means.
Hmm.
There's no way I can connect the dots on what inactive actually means because I was earlier on and
Right.
everything was active, everything was popping, everything was HD bright
Yeah.
when it came to mourning. So I think there is an aspect of, and this is something I've been kind of exploring is I love the term journey. We
Hmm.
put that in the title of the podcast, A Journey of Transformation, as a subtitle, I guess I should say. But a lot of things that I've been exploring with the journey is I'll say my grief journey or my
Hmm.
spiritual journey or
Right.
my professional occupational journey. The truth is you can't really parse them out. They're all part of your journey.
Hmm.
There are aspects of your journey where you might be in inactive grief right now, and
Hmm.
then maybe there's a milestone date, that comes up like August 20th or January 5th, which was
Hmm.
CJ's birthday. That might put you back into active grief or active
Hmm.
mourning
Right.
at that point. But I think part of the turning grief into growth aspect is you don't have to be in active grief your entire life. It's always going to be there. It's not that you could ever rid yourself of the grief. It's just that it's not always going to be a switch that's turned on. That might be hard getting out of bed, or it might be active, major, chronic depression or things like that. Don, would you kind of agree with that since you brought it up to me originally?
Yeah. So, and I feel like for our listeners' sake, we should probably talk about this a little bit. Um, because what's the difference between active and inactive grief? Well, for me, active grief, I felt the pain I was suffering. Uh, my emotions were highly activated, uh, and when that started to soften, because and it took a few years for me, um, but it started to soften, and things didn't feel as painful. Like, the thoughts that were coming through my head, the feelings that were coming through my body, I didn't feel the pain like I had been. That is when I shifted into inactive grief. I was still grieving, still like always love our child. That's never going to go away. Like, that love for our child that lives on, just as Tapp says, and it's true. It really does. The it, what and we're always going to miss them too. That's not going to go away. But the pain and the suffering, for me, it melted away. It dissolved, and so I decided to call that inactive grieving. I don't know if there is a definition out there.
There is now.
Yeah. Yeah.
But would you describe it that way too, Greg? As far
I
as
would. Yeah. Now that I'm five and years down the road, I think that there are points in time, there's triggers, there's activation of emotions that might spiral me into a grief moment that's very active. But I don't wake up with the heavy cloud of depression of just loss and missing my son. There's more things that remind me of my son in a positive way
right,
than there
right?
is of the negative now.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think it takes time, and I
It
would
does.
say for our listeners that time does not heal all wounds. So don't buy into that psychological lie that's thrown out there that time heals all wounds. It does
Mhm.
not. It's only when you put the work in over
Yeah.
time
Uh,
that it will.
I am so grateful you just said that.
Exactly.
That
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
So Chris, I want to merge into a different area, and this is I will say that Chris and I are both big, tall, macho guys, And the reason I
And
throw that
Chris,
out as a
wait,
precursor,
because Chris, I am very short
yeah,
and very not macho.
yeah. So Don comes up to about my armpit in the picture we took.
I hear
But the
you.
reason I throw that out is I felt like Chris and I had like a Match.com moment. It was kind of funny. I had mentored him for 2 or 3 years, and I happened to be traveling all through Alabama on business last year, and it was, I don't know, it was summer of 25, I think.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I looked him up ahead of time. I said, "Hey, I'm going to be in Birmingham on such and such date. Love to get together, for dinner with you." And I remember we agreed to meet at this Outback Steakhouse,
yeah,
which actually ironically happened to be right next door to the hotel I was staying in. So I walked over there and I sat on the porch, and it's like I was, anxiously waiting for you to show up. And you pulled up in a, Dodge Challenger. You get out like the boss. And I'm like, dude, that's you. I've seen your picture and all this. But to that point, you and I had never met in person. And I gave you a big hug. You gave me a big hug. And there was just this instant, like, it's hard to say, but like I said before, connecting the dots, this connection where we had done this over the phone for several years. That's why I mentioned the Match.com. It's like an online
yeah.
phone type, mentorship, which works. It does. But there
Exactly.
was
Yeah,
nothing like meeting you in person and sitting across from you for 3 hours
yeah.
and just talking. So I just wondered if you'd want to share a little bit about that experience.
Yeah, I was looking forward to it when you called me up, man. I mean, the people that mentor you, man, I tell you, it really speaks volumes to your heart, man, especially when you can, like say, meet for dinner or something like that. When you told me you were coming, man, I was excited about it. Got over there. When I saw you, man, I was like, hey, man, you're a big guy. What you say? You're 6'4", six
Six,
five, six
seven.
six seven. Yeah, okay, man. I'm sorry. I was lowballing you on that one. I'm sorry,
Short
but
me.
yeah. Now the picture that the waitress took looked like we were the same height,
That's
same
right. Sitting
size.
down. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
But just the conversation, I tell you, man, it really showed me not just this side of it, not just the mentor side. It showed me your personality. And I believe we talked so long, man, because your personality meshed with mine. I could tell the way that you were interacting with me, with the waitress, and everything, and everything was, man, it was just warm. It was a brotherly type. I mean, man, we just sitting here chopping it up like you're talking sports or something. Man, we both sitting here talking about our sons, and the conversation was just organic. Man, we both had some ribeyes, and it was a great thing, man. I really enjoyed the conversation, man. Just you pouring into me, I'm pouring into you, man, and it's beautiful, man.
And the reason I asked you that is not for a pat on the shoulder for
Right.
me.
Hmm.
I just, it's amazing to me. I walked out of that restaurant and I called my wife that night and I said, never, ever, ever before or probably after will I ever have that experience of talking to somebody over the phone for a couple years and then going and having a 3 hour conversation like I've known him my entire
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
And it was like we were childhood friends that used to ride BMX bikes down the road together and had our own
Yeah.
little
Yeah.
gang. And it was amazing to me. And that's what empathy does. And
Yeah.
that's the draw of why we need brotherhoods,
Yeah.
sisterhoods in the grief arena, because when a loved one dies, especially like a child, so I'm not excluding other relationships from
Hmm.
spouse to parents to siblings, anything like that. But the harder grief I think really comes into losing a child because it's not nature's natural order. And whenever you go to your existing sphere of influence and existing friend circle, they have no comprehension and they
Yeah.
don't know what to do. So
Hmm.
that's why I think it's so important to seek out people that actually do know, that get it, that have been down that road, which is why I think this call is very important to emphasize replication. And what I've
Yeah.
seen with you, with your manager, your friend, to be able, anytime somebody, calls me, is like, oh, you'd be proud of me. I'm a mini Greg Jacobs. I was able to talk to so-and-so today. And I'm like, no, you're a mini Don Lipstein. Don Lipstein's a mini so-and-so that actually replicate into him. And it's this whole pass
It,
through.
it's a ripple effect
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. It
that
really is.
happens,
Yeah.
and it's so important when you think about it. Uh, I know I needed the people that were there for me prior, when I was going through it,
Mhm.
and it was so helpful to me to be able to give and what's the term you guys have been using? Pour into.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Hmm.
like that to me was so, I needed that. I needed to be able to pour into somebody because people poured into me. It's
Exactly.
it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like to add one thing.
Yeah.
CJ passed on on a Saturday. Well, I had a coworker who lost her son a month. It was right. Her son would have been gone, have passed away a month, sometime the next week. Saturday, CJ. Monday morning, me and my wife was sitting down, just kind of processing everything. I said, I need to call Latanya. She's a coworker who lost her son, like I said, not even a month before. And just the wisdom that she poured into me. I told her, I said, hey, you were on my mind. She said, I was on your mind.
Mm.
I said, yeah, this is me and my wife. I said, because you're on this journey. I was seeking out, you look for the light. If you want to be a part of
Yeah,
the light, you want to get on the right track, you want to look for the light, look for people who can shine that light for you.
yeah,
And
Yeah.
and when I talked, and she told me, she said, feel how you feel.
Mm.
She said, if you want to cry, cry. If you want to scream, scream. If you want to, you talk to him. She gave me some wisdom for that time, and and that's and that's been part of my journey. That I tell people I'm it's dark right now, but I tell people I got a light on you. I
Hmm.
got a light on
I
you on your journey. So yeah,
I love that. And Dr. Alan Wolfelt says you have to feel in order to heal.
yeah,
So what you were saying that she said to you, feel what you feel.
yeah,
That's so true, so
Yeah.
hmm,
true.
yeah,
There's something, Chris, when you talked about feel how you feel. I remember you texting me or calling me. Your wife,
mhm,
Consuelo, wanted you to, was it a gazebo that you were building off the back deck?
yeah,
And the pieces weren't coming together right. And you're like, Greg, I just wanted to throw that thing over the fence. I was so mad and frustrated. And
yeah,
I had just had one of those frustrating moments. My son and I were building a pergola on our back deck.
yeah,
The irony of it, as far as type of thing we were building. But I remember feeling the same feelings, and that's all just part of your grief journey or your
yeah,
journey period, where you're going to have those times of anger, of frustration, of just wanting
yeah,
to throw it over the fence. But you learn from that, and you
yeah.
move on.
Yeah, yeah. She had me build her. She said, I want a floating deck on the side of the regular deck with with that on top with a gazebo on top of it.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh goodness. So yeah, just the frustrating, but the focus also was good. It was therapeutic for me too.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. To find something to. I was reading. Was it Zig Ziglar or
Yeah.
one of these books, and they were talking about grief journeys and everything. Trying to get back to a place of normal and doing things that's normal. And I like woodwork, so I tried to, and I just kind of poured into that too, and she poured into it with me. So that gave us something to focus on together
Yeah.
because my barber lost his son 10 years before, and he said you have to talk to each other. You got to pour into things together. You got to walk together in the journey because people can grow apart in the journey. And
Mm.
he said the guy who mentored him, who lost his son 10 years prior to his son, he said he grew apart from his wife and he lost his marriage. But my barber said, hey, that made me pour into my wife. So
Yeah.
we started doing things together. So
Yeah.
yeah,
No, that's
especially
good.
with a child. With a child, it is
Yeah.
one of those things that it's a all grief. I think is a lonely journey. All grief is a lonely journey. So you have to open up to somebody. Yeah, even if it's your wife, because she's his only mother. You're his only father. I was my son's only father. So to do that, even where there are a lot of siblings where one sibling meets the other one, that's a personal journey.
Yeah.
So yeah. So
Chris, speaking of siblings, you have other
Mhm.
children,
I do have a 33-year-old daughter, 32-year-old
and
daughter. I'm sorry. Yeah.
and how has she done with her grief, if
She
you
has
don't mind me asking?
she actually came over on his birthday and we sat down and talked, and she's been doing pretty good. And she told us, she said her mother asked her, do you are you emotional? Do you get emotional? She was like, yeah, but she said, I think about him every day. It's not a day. She said, because we had a she said we had a personal, we just had that relationship. We had that brother sister relationship where I was like, okay, I'm gonna call him, but maybe, yeah, I forgot to call him. She said sometimes it weighs on her because she was telling herself, I need to call. And, just a FaceTime, hear him cut up or whatever. And she said she didn't call. She's like, I get in touch with him. And I said, no, don't beat yourself up over it, because basically when someone is gone, you can't get that back. What it does for you is in the future, it tells you when somebody hits my mind, get in touch with them. You
Yeah.
might never not have this opportunity anymore.
Yeah. It's a good call out.
Yeah.
You you have expressed so much wisdom in
Hmm.
this podcast.
Thank
I'm
you.
loving this episode, loving it.
Yeah.
And
Thank
I knew
you.
you would. That's why I invited you on, because I've seen the growth in you, and it has challenged me in so many ways. There was, I know I said you can't really parse out different, grief journey, spiritual journey, professional journey, whatever. But on your journey, I know that I had a crisis of faith as a Christian man. I know you're also a Christian man. I know that that was something that you did not experience, and I don't want to put words in your mouth as much as I did. Is that correct?
With me,
Yeah.
it was a struggle. It was a struggle. I leaned on my faith a lot, but even faith is a fight.
Yeah.
It tells us to fight the good fight of faith, because and I think with everybody it makes you question different things. But that's I asked my manager. I asked him a question because I had experienced it. I said, and this is my journey too. I said, did you get to that point where you felt like, Lord, if you're ready for me, I'm ready to go? Because I
Hmm.
mean, I said, but now I don't want to die. I'm not suicidal or anything. But if you're ready for me, I mean, because this is heavy and this, that. So you get to the end of yourself. And I asked him, have you got to that part where you got to come to the end of yourself where you're like, Lord, hey, whatever you want to do, because the heaviness weighs on you. It makes you despair
Yeah.
of life.
Yeah.
And he said, I got there like last week. And
Mm.
he laughed a little bit first, like hesitantly, but then he opened up. He said, I got there. So, and because I said, I know it. I said, when you get to that point, I said, we have in the Navy, we have something we call dog zebra. That's where you start locking off parts of the ship so the whole ship won't go down.
Mm.
I said, when you get to that part where you start locking off parts of the ship, because you're trying to save the ship, I
Yeah.
had to be real with myself. Son, you could have done that better. I had to get real with myself, with my son and everything. You could have done that better. I taught you to wear your seatbelt. You know, yeah, I want to see you again, but no time soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, stuff like that.
Yeah, and I think the reason I asked that question is I'm reminded of a wise man, Andy, who actually did David's funeral. He said, "Greg, don't stop asking the why questions. Just know that you're not going to get any answers." And
Wow,
I look back at the
wow.
original why questions earlier on that I was asking, and I was
Hmm.
like, now I don't feel like I need the answer to
Yeah,
them.
yeah,
So I've grown into my faith with the acceptance of that, which has kind of been tantamount for me. I wanted to just ask you, there were, like you mentioned, the date was kind of a roadblock for you. It was hard. Going out to the cemetery was another one for you.
yeah,
Do you want to just kind of just talk a little bit about that, but also in the wrapper of complex grief and the fact that life continues coming at you, whether you're ready for it or not. So, the next year after CJ died, your mom passed away.
yeah,
And it's grief compounded on top of grief. And yes, it's natural course for, a parent to pass away, but it's still hard grief, not to diminish that. But
hmm,
this whole aspect of you're trying to figure out, how do I go out to the cemetery to
yeah,
visit my son's grave? My mom died. All this stuff that just comes at you. How do,
yeah.
how do you process that, step by step?
Yeah, the first part you were talking about was that date when it rolled around. The first year, I mean, you're moving up into your first year, so I felt like I had been building myself up. But me and you were talking then, and so I was at a strong. I felt like at a strong point, but then I posted on Facebook about my son and everything, and it brought all the feelings back, and it dug a hole for me when I posted it on Facebook because even though, people mean well and there's nothing bad against, what people do because we all do it. And, I'm praying for you, this, that, and the other. And hey, man, my condolences. And, hey, we got you in our thoughts and prayers. That actually dug a hole for me. And I had to
Mm,
climb out of it. So uh, I didn't do it the same the next year. So I try to make sure as the years go by on his anniversary or something, I try to make sure it's not so much about what happened. Because that first year, I felt like I had to climb. Y'all know the feeling of climbing out of a
yeah.
hole. And that dug a deep hole for me that it was a pit. It was a real pit to try to struggle and get up out of. Going to the cemetery. Well, let me go to my mom first because I didn't go to his first year because, it takes a while to get,
Yeah.
the headstone and everything. Well, mom passed away like I said, he was August, roll around to March, my mom passed. And, just taking care of her, being there for her, going to see her in the nursing home. She had health issues and stuff. But this was all of a sudden, she was going down to get some tests, and all of a sudden, mom died. And I was actually out of town at a convention, and it just kind of, and we were going to move from the convention and start celebrating my wife's birthday right after that for about 3 days. Um, and it threw me having to travel back into town, and it brought all those feelings back. I was like, hey, your mom had this to happen. She's in the hospital. You need to get here. And wait a minute, I'm not through grieving my
Mm,
son yet.
I'm not ready for
I'm
this.
still,
Yeah.
yeah. And so life doesn't wait for you to get over one thing before it throws you something else. It kind of stacks it on, and you have to
Yeah.
learn how to keep your head above water and navigate. So I mean, I was able to get through that, but that's something that I had always feared. Mom dying, because mom's important to all of us guys. You understand that, to
Yeah.
everybody, and that's something I had always feared. But I think that I experienced something that was heavier than mom dying with my son dying, so I was able to handle mom dying. So the fear that I had of mom dying, it didn't hit me as hard
Mm,
because I had experienced my son. So and going to the cemetery, going to Alabama National. Yeah, that was a tough one, and I did it on his birthday. No, not the first birthday that came up. So I believe he would have been 24. So his 25th birthday, he would
hmm.
have turned 27 now. So just being out there and just seeing when you walk up and see your child's name for the first time, it almost floors you, and you can't help but just look at it. And just it's kind of I don't know if at that point I had already accepted it. And but just seeing your son's name there, it takes you back for a minute. You're like, man, are we really right here? And I talked to him for a little bit, just spent a little time out there. And his grandfather was a little bit ahead of him, so I found his grandfather's. That was pretty cool to know that they're in this. Not cool, but it was okay knowing that they're in the same area. So, but it's a hard one. I took pictures. You kind of cherish the moments, even with that journey, of your breakthrough. That was a breakthrough for me.
Hmm.
Yeah. So
Chris, would you say that with each of your losses, that you learned uh, something different, maybe, and uh, can you talk about that a little bit?
yeah, with these laws, you do learn, different. I learned with my, well, starting with when my children were small. The first person I lost that I could remember that really was significant in my life was my aunt. And my children were CJ had to been about 3 or 4. So you figure this was 20 years before that. I got into, like, I don't know if I got into a spirit of fear or something. I started fearing for my family, fearing to go over bridges because I had never experienced that because I don't think I processed it and grieved it right. So I had to release my family and basically pray over my family and tell them, or not tell them, but just say to the Father, hey, they belong to you. I'm just a steward. So I learned not to hold them so close to where it would break or kill me if they, if I ever had to open my arms one day. And I've had to do that. I had to do that with my mom, and my brother, my wife, everybody. You can't hold them so close. And like, no, I end up losing mom too. So I learned not to hold so tightly that if they had to leave here, or if they did leave, it would break me. That was a strong part of my journey right there. But yeah, with every loss, there is growth. I
That's
came up with
wisdom.
I came up with a quote. I like quotes and I write them down. And I told my friend this early on. With loss, there's a lesson learned on every level of loss. Whether it's loss of a friendship, loss of a job, loss of a loved one, well, there's a level, there's a lesson learned on every level of loss. Yeah, I played with the L's with that one. So
Well, yeah, and that's so true. And I know we're going to be having an episode down the road about grief, uh, other types of grief, not
yeah,
just losing life, but there is so much grief out there. So
Yeah.
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 It could be a job.
Yeah, and it was
yeah,
for
Yeah,
me. Yeah, I
yeah,
got
yeah.
laid off after, 13 years, and I had no idea there was grief associated with that. So, no,
yeah,
that's a great call out.
yeah.
Well, Don, do you have any last questions before I turn it over to Chris for any last
I,
comments?
I don't have any questions, but I just want to thank you so much, Chris, for being here with
Yeah.
us today and
My
sharing your
pleasure.
heart. Boy, I feel like I've gotten to know you in this 45 minutes and I can see why Greg connected with you so easily. You're
Thank you.
a real person and you got a big heart and it comes through. So thank you
Yeah.
for being a part of this.
It was a pleasure meeting you, Don. Greg, I thank you for the opportunity and you considering me. And I consider Greg not just a friend, mentor, but my brother. And
Yeah.
Don, we brothers now.
Yes, we
Yeah.
are.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
we
yeah.
are.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah. Life. You never know who you're gonna find on the journey of life, and sometimes it's not people that you might have anything in common with. Your walk of life might be different, financially, the activities and everything that you do. Like say even different races or whatever. But when you cross a path and you find true heart to heart connection, it becomes a brotherhood. Kind of like the military. I had a lot of brothers in the military that was nothing like me, looked nothing like me. We didn't do the same things, but because we had commonalities, it made us brothers.
I agree.
Yeah,
Yeah. There's
So
there's
yeah,
a lot of
grief.
people on this. Oh, go ahead, Don.
No, just real quick, grief will do that, right? It
yeah,
creates brotherhood.
yeah,
So
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of people on this road of life I can do without building strong relationships with. But when you do find somebody that's a pearl of great price, that is a treasure like you, then you definitely don't take it for granted. So, Chris, you're a beautiful soul.
yes, you
thank you,
are.
brother.
You're great at writing poetry, and I think that's part of your expression of your grief as well. I've always enjoyed just some of your writings and thoughts. And we just want to thank you so much for coming on and not just sharing with Don and I, but people all around the world that might listen to this podcast, because I really believe that it'll benefit others and help people turn grief into growth.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
So,
Thank you, brother. Thank you. I thank both of y'all for this opportunity.
absolutely. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank
All
you.
right. Mhm.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to listen. We hope turning grief into growth spoke to your heart and becomes a part of your own journey of healing and transformation. If you know someone who could use a little hope, please share this episode with them. And don't forget to follow, like, or subscribe on your favorite platform so you don't miss what's coming next. Don and I can't wait to share more conversations to help you keep turning your grief into growth. Until next time.